Word has it that Eulmore has dispatched its military to Lakeland. Given the timing, we can only assume that they do not welcome the return of the night. The Exarch is currently in the Ocular, trying to investigate what is going on. We head there and see Alphino and Alize are here too. In a place known as Laxon Loft, the Eulmorians have sent one of their airships. They have come asking questions about the death of the Light Warden, and their emissary is making his way here as we speak. Their arrival was inevitable, but we didn't think it would be so soon. A knock is at the door. It is Lena, saying that the Eulmorian emissary has arrived. He asks us for a moment and gathers us around. He casts a spell which makes us invisible to the naked eye. He then calls to Lena, telling her to let the emissary in. But the emissary is the commander of the Eulmoran army himself, General Ranjit. He cuts straight to the point. The Light Warden is dead. Were your people responsible? He is clearly in a rush to get out of here, but before the Exarch will answer, he will instead ask a question of his own. What is Eulmore's interest in this? Lord VIII believes that the actions of the ignorant few may jeopardize relations between man and Senator. If the Crystarium were found helping these villains slay the Light Warden, then they will expect the same outcome. Retribution. Considering Ranjit spoke so plainly, the Exarch will show him the same courtesy. The Crystarium is not responsible for it, but they rejoice in the Light Warden's death and welcome the return of the night sky. If Eulmore believes that is enough to label them as villains, then they are free to carry out their retribution. But know this, even if every innocent soul in the Crystarium were to perish, nothing can stop that which has been set in motion. All Ranjit can do is sigh. The death of one Senator will not be enough to change this world. This world is dead and gone, and no matter what we do, it cannot be stopped. All we can hope for is living out the rest of our days in peace under the grace of Lord VIII. No matter, he has clearly chosen his stance. He will report his words to Lord VIII. He starts to leave, but stops. He stares directly at us and then continues on his way out, leading us to believe that he has been able to see us, or at least sense our presence, the entire time. To be the commander of the strongest army in the world means that he possesses exceptional instincts. He is a man not to be trifled with. All his talk of retribution is more than just an idle threat. In fact, the Exarch is surprised that he didn't outright declare war right here and now. He must have had reason to delay, to which Lena replies that they spotted a girl being taken prisoner, and that girl is none other than the Oracle of Light, Minfilia. Maybe they wanted to bring her to Eulmore before invading, seeing as he mentored generations of Minfilia. Her capture must be his top priority. I'm sorry, what? Generations of Minfilias? In the Exarch's negligence, he has forgotten to tell us about Minfilia, but now is not the time. Instead, he tells us to seek Moren and have him tell us about Minfilia. Just as Moren did before, he reads from a book which is aptly named The Illustrated Tale of the Oracle of Light. The story goes as follows. It began 100 years ago, when the flood of light threatened to swallow Norvrand. Just as all seemed lost, a savior appeared, who halted the all-consuming radiance. A maiden with golden hair and eyes of the clearest sapphire. Naught was known about her save that her name was Minfilia, and for delivering the realm, she came to be revered as the Oracle of Light. After stopping the flood, the mysterious maiden vanished without a trace, but 15 years later, her name would unexpectedly reappear in the annals of history. When Senators laid ruin to the kingdom of Verbert, a young girl was discovered who was immune to the creature's blighted touch. One with golden hair and eyes of the clearest sapphire. She was hailed as the Oracle Reborn and came to likewise be called Minfilia. Enlisting in the Eulmorian army, this Minfilia fought and vanquished countless Senators. Alas, like so many other soldiers, she eventually met her end in battle. Yet, with her dying breath, she whispered unto her grieving comrades, Minfilia will return. And true to her words, some years later, another young girl was discovered who possessed the self-same eyes and that self-same hair and those self-same powers. She too took the name Minfilia, she too fought the Sin Eaters as a soldier of Eulmore, and she too fell in battle. Many more were to follow in her footsteps, and so the cycle continues to this day. By their valor and sacrifice, these women have saved Norvrand on numerous occasions, and if it were not for them, they may have never learned of the Light Wardens and their true nature. Though they sound like fearless warriors, the truth is much less simple. The Oracle is reborn, yes, but they have no knowledge of their previous lives. Every single Minfilia that was discovered were just ordinary girls, oblivious to the powers they harbored. Whether they embraced their fate or renounced it, it didn't matter. In the end, they were made to face the Sin Eaters and died to keep our hopes alive. As for the current Minfilia, Eulmore does not have need for her under Vorthri's rule. Therefore, they found her and took her into custody, believing that she would be a threat to the peace they have created. That was until a valiant soul rescued her some 3 years ago. As you may have surmised, the person who saved her was Thancred. Ever since then, they have been wandering the land together, never remaining in one spot for too long. If Minfilia has been captured, then Thancred will not sit by idly and let them do it, and neither should we. We should go about rescuing her. The Exarch joins our discussion, telling us that he has a report and a proposal. He reports that they have confirmed that Minfilia is being held within Lakeland Loft, and they are preparing to return to Eulmore as we speak. And as for the proposal, he wants us to leave the plan up to the people of the Crystarium. Though we could succeed in the plan with just our strength, the Exarch doesn't want to show his hand unless it is absolutely necessary. That is why he wants to rely on the people instead. Not only did we restore the night sky, we also restored the people's hope. Hope for the future of Norvrand. They may not be able to slay wardens, but as long as hope burns within their hearts, they will fight regardless. He gathers his most trusted advisors and reports on what has happened thus far. The Eulmorians have given them an ultimatum. If they were to assist the Warrior of Darkness, then there will be war. One that we cannot win, as we do not possess the strength to resist the might of Eulmore. And yet, it is better to fight an unwinning battle than to relinquish the hope that has swelled within him ever since he witnessed the night sky. If he were to follow his heart, then he would fight. But if he were to follow his mind, it reminds him that if they fought, then they would risk everything they have accomplished thus far. Therefore, he seeks their counsel. What should he do? He already knows their answer. It brought tears to their eyes to witness the knight's return. The whole of Norvrand deserves the same. Even if it were to affect the flow of trade goods, we will make do with what we have. We can weather such hardships. The Crystarium was built on the ability to sustain itself, not just to endure, but to thrive. When all falls down around you, rise up. There may come a day when all hope seems lost, but even should the rest of the world give in to despair, we shall not. We shall fight on, that our children and our children's children might know a better tomorrow. They have reached a consensus. Let it be known that the Oracle of Light has been captured at Lakeland Loft, and so we move to rescue the Oracle and grant her a place among us. That will be our answer to Eulmore's ultimatum. If Eulmore wishes to denounce us as villains, then we shall embrace our villainy. The plan will go as follows. We will deploy Armoro to the skies of Lakeland to delay their airships. Then we will scatter dream powder in the air. Most of their army will succumb to it, giving us the opportunity to retrieve the Oracle. As for us, we will join the guard under Captain Lena's supervision. We get measured for our uniforms, as we need to blend in with the army, and we drink a bitter serum known as Prince's Kiss. It grants resistance to the effects of dream powder. Then we meet up with Lena at the fortress named the Ostal Imperative, and wait for the operation to begin. Our operation goes smoothly, and most of the guards are incapacitated right off the bat. We fly our Amaro to the entrance of Laxon Loft and begin our rescue of the Oracle of Light. We defeat the remaining soldiers who are still awake and group up with Alphino and Alize, but their numbers do not end. Instead, they recommend that we go on ahead as they hold the line here. Both Lena and us make way for the Eulmore airship and find Minfilia sitting in front of it with her arms bound by rope. We untie her hands and hand her back her daggers. Now it is time to escape from Laxon Loft, but as we are leaving, we notice it is suddenly way too quiet. When we turn the corner, we realize it is because Ranjit has joined the fray. Just as the Exarch said, his strength isn't just a boast. To be the commander of the mightiest army has made him quite resilient. He even immobilizes us after he has seen through our moves. He makes ready to arrest us all and bring us before VIII, but just in the nick of time, Thancred launches an attack from behind. Ranjit, however, blocks the attack in time. Thancred cannot land a single hit on him and is sent flying towards us, but this was a part of his plan. Some kind of magic surrounds everyone. Just as Ranjit realizes what is happening, it is too late. We have all been teleported elsewhere. He rushes out to an overlook and sees us running into the forest. But we are not that far, and he believes that he can catch up to us. He prepares himself for a jump, but just before he launches himself forward, the Exarch casts a spell, Break, which slows him down, making him unable to make the jump. Ranjit snaps at him. He is a fool. Does he want to see his city razed to the ground? The Exarch would rather see it razed than conquered. He does not intend to fight against Ranjit, and if he were to give chase, then he cannot stop him. But he will give him forewarning, for his quarry enters a place not even Eulmore dare bear its steel. Mheg, the Faerie Kingdom. A man who looks like Solace from the Source is watching the battle unfold. To think that VIII still had the energy to unleash his army. Even the most pointless conflicts may yet alter a world's course, and now the plan has gone all wrong. But how? How did the Exarch bring the hero of the Source to the first, as if he didn't have enough on his hands already? Then again, with a soul such as that, mayhap there is another way, one that does not require bloodshed.
Not so long ago, here in the shadow of the northern ranges, lay the great kingdom of Verbert, a nation with a proud history that the Sin-Eaters cut short, just like all the rest. Since that time, these lands have become a haven for Fae folk, dreamers frolicking amidst the ruins of a forgotten realm.
We have moved deep enough through the forest that we should be safe here. Thancred explains why he arrived at Laxon Loft. When he was traveling with Minfilia, she ran off on her own in Lakeland, which ended in her consequential capture. Whilst he was trying to establish his own plan to rescue her, he noticed that the troops of the Crystarium were moving in force. So he paid a visit to the Crystarium and met with the Exarch, who had him join the fray. And if things were to go sour, we were to make for Mheg, which roughly translates to Rainbow Realm. Whilst here, we must accomplish two things: meet with Urian J and slay the Light Warden of this nation. As for why Minfilia decided to run off, it is because she had to meet us, the hero from another world. She felt the presence of someone she had to meet, and she knew she had to go to them. An unknown voice talks to us, but we cannot see their form. It seems like we have already been caught in the pixie's spell, as Minfilia cannot remember the way to Urian J's. The pixies are fond of mischief and use their powerful illusions to play tricks on those who venture into their domains. For example, they can make a familiar path you walk feel unfamiliar, just like what has happened to Thancred and Minfilia. For now, we need to convince the pixies to lift the spell. Considering that they want to play with us, then they should at least allow us to see their village, Lyhe Ghiah. Thancred asks us to find a plant with a distinctive full tip, aptly named the Looking Grass. But we should be wary about any pixies in the bushes we find, and ignore their questions, lest they play a trick on us. Unfortunately, we got a trick played on us, but we did find the Looking Grass. We hand it to Thancred, who looks through the tip, and he can see the pixies through it. He announces, Farasi Thar, Krak Clayeth, which translates to, I found you, the game is over. The pixies begin poofing into existence and are annoyed at us for ruining their games. We ask them to lift the spell and let us see our friend Urian J. Urian J, the peculiar one. To earn a spot living here in Mheg, they made him do endless riddles for 7 days and nights without sleep. Well, we don't have that kind of time. Would they please lift the spell and let us go? They agree to lift the spell, but only on the terms that we help them with some of their tasks. We do their tasks, but they are just pranks or something trivial. They are just making us waste our time and making our stay here take longer. If this were to take too long, the Eulmorians will catch up to us and we will be out of luck. If we leave them to judge us when they are satisfied, then they will never be satisfied. We need to negotiate with them, but where would we even start? We need at least one pixie among them who sympathizes with our cause. Then we remember, at the beginning of our journey, we made a pact with the pixie known as Feo Ul. We must contact her at once, as she might be our only way out. We move over to a more private space and call out her name, Feo Ul, but she does not sound happy. So my sapling has finally remembered about his lovely branch, but with such a half-hearted call, he may as well lop me off and cast me aside. I have no sapling. So then we try again, but with more passion. Please, Feo Ul, I need you. But still it is not enough. Is this our idea of a fervent call? A sodden log could do it with more fire. Then we cast our embarrassment to the wind, and call our branch with as much further as we can. O loveliest of branches, please grant me your succor. This time it worked, but she is still angry at us. We are late, very late. She has been waiting for us to summon her ever since we arrived in Mheg, but her sapling didn't even utter her name. Such a cold, cruel, and heartless thing we are. But because we called her so earnestly, she cannot stay angry at us and agrees to help us out. She flies over to the rest of the pixies and tells them that we and our comrades are for her amusement and her amusement alone. No matter what games they play, they will never ever have us. If they so much as lay a finger on us, she will empty the contents of our bag all over the village. Just imagine the horror. Cold, hard metal, furry, festering food, stinky small clothes, all manner of terrible things spread throughout the village. They don't want that, do they? They give in to the threats and reveal the truth to us, on the condition that the twins stay behind as we visit Urian J. Feo Ul was very useful, and she aggressively reminds us before she disappears that whenever we are in trouble, we must remember to make use of her. With the mist lifted, Minfilia can now remember the way to Urian J's. She leads us to the Bookman's Shelves, which is an abandoned nobleman's manor, full of a vast collection of tomes. In a world without heroes, a hero finds his way. The Exarch told him that we would eventually seek him out, but he did not think we would arrive so soon. But he is glad to see us once more. We tell Urian J of what has transpired thus far, that we have slain a Light Warden, and that Eulmore has declared war in retaliation. In return, he will tell us the vision he happened to glimpse in the rift between the worlds, the vision of the 8th Umbral Calamity. It was here that he saw the combined forces of Eorzea and the Far East battling against Garlemald. They were holding a strong resistance that was able to push Garlemald all the way back to their border. However, their victory forced the general's hand. He used the Black Rose against us. Its potency was unexplainable. Once unleashed, it took to wreaking havoc and carnage across all the provinces of Hydaelyn. It didn't matter who you were. In the end, none were spared. Not even the land itself could escape its destruction, as it brought death to the very soil. The casualties became too many to count. and thus did the fabric of civilization begin to break down. To survive the chaos, man had to live by the sword and rule the lands with their might. Nations that existed no longer did. And what of the heroes who could have potentially brought about peace and order in this time where there was none? They were no more, for the weapon spared nobody, not even us. It was an endless war that was caused by the Black Rose's usage. That is the 8th Umbral Calamity he saw. No matter what, we must stop this vision from coming true. To that end, Urianger J has been working tirelessly to identify a way to do so, and in the end, he has indeed found the answer as to why the Black Rose suddenly increased in potency. He directs us to a picture on the wall. It is a picture of an elemental wheel. The world is comprised of 6 elements, being lightning, earth, wind, fire, water, and ice. There are also 2 fundamental poles which are at complete opposites of each other. The astral pole, which is the active, and the umbral pole, which is the passive. Each element can shift to one of these poles. For example, astral water could refer to rain pouring from the sky, as the water element is active, whereas umbral water would refer to a quiet, motionless lake, as the water element is passive. As a reflection of the source, one would assume that these fundamentals would be the same on the first. However, one thing to be mentioned is that they do not refer to the poles as astral and umbral. When speaking about the pole, which is aligned with activity and growth, where life's colors combine to produce black, the people had called the astral pole darkness. And when speaking about the pole aligned with passivity, being the purest white, which was untainted by the colors of the realm, the people had called the umbral pole light. Umbral light and astral darkness. We had all but assumed light, which was seen as good, must have been linked to astral, and we had also assumed that darkness, something we thought was bad, must have been linked to umbral. Hence Umbral Calamity, a period where the world's growth is stagnated, and astral era, a period where the world is full of life and growth. Instead, that means we might have had it backwards this whole time. It can even be proven. Prior to arriving on the first, we saw a phenomenon where the aether was observed to be thinning on the source. This was because of the light, the power of stasis, flowing from the first to stifle the movement of aether in the source. And how does the Black Rose kill? It does so by halting the flow of aether within a being. If a weapon with affinity to light were to be unleashed as the first was rejoined to the source, it would turn into a calamity. Though the lesson has taught us more about what we're up against, it doesn't change our objectives in Mheg. Now that we have met up with Urianger J, it is time we fulfill our second objective, slaying the Light Warden. It is located in Lyhe Ghiah, a castle that lies in the middle of the lake. To enter the castle, we must turn to the pixies for aid. Luckily, Urianger J has become more adept at getting the help. Therefore, from now on, he will accompany us and do all in his power to prevent the vision he saw. We prepare suitable gifts for the pixies so that they will aid our cause. In the meantime, Urianger J hands us some white auracite. If we are to stop a rejoining, then we will be up against those who will stop at nothing to see it happen. The auracite will come in handy. Minfilia re-enters the room, as she is done imbuing all of Thancred's ammunition. Urianger J allows her to take one book from his abode to bring along with her on their journey. While she is distracted looking for a book, he asks if Thancred has told us about his encounter with the original Minfilia from Source. 3 years ago, after he freed Minfilia from captivity, they journeyed to the south of Armoreng, to the edge of the Empty, where the flood was halted. It was here where she awakened, the Minfilia of Eld. His words trigger our echo and grant us a vision. In this vision, we can see Thancred standing at the edge of the empty. What must he do to bring her back? She shakes her head. As she is now, she is like an Ashian. This is only a vessel. She had used many before to try and spread the word of her blessing and to preserve the flame of hope, but in her name, each and every one had died without ever having the chance to live their own life. She has taken enough from these children, and she will not take any more. He cannot believe the words he is hearing. There has to be something he can do. If this child were to grow weary of fighting and wishes to cast everything aside, then she will take over her burden. But if she wishes to persevere, to have her own life, then she will surrender her all to her and grant her the powers of the Oracle. What about those who want nothing more than to see her again? That is not their decision to make. It is this child's. Thancred has watched over Minfilia ever since the day the Gobus killed her father. Now she asks that he does the same for this child. Protect her. She needs someone to guide her. Otherwise she will never find her own path. When the time comes, they can find her again here. Until then, she surrenders the control she had on Minfilia and disappears. Our vision ends here. We return back to the scenery of the bookman's shelves. Thancred finishes his story. Minfilia, the child, has no recollection of the events. Thancred has told her everything about our past, but that day he has not spoken of. How does he want this to end? Thancred cannot answer our question as he stands there in silence, though his silence speaks 1,000 words. With the coming of another with a blessing, the first has risen up against its fate. Who will take up the flame of hope which Minfilia held for so long? Whether we want it or not, the choice will be made soon. Minfilia returns with the book she has chosen, and we leave for leader Loran. The pixies are fond of our gift and ask what do we want in return. We want access to Lyhe Ghiah so that we can slay the Light Warden of this realm. A very peculiar request, but not one that they can refuse. They will speak with the others and see if it can be done. Out of curiosity, Alisaie asks Urianger J if he knows anything about the Light Warden of Mheg. And he does. It is actually quite a tragic tale. The Light Warden of this land is their king and ruler, Titania. They were not always like that. They fought against the previous Light Warden and won. But as you know, its incessant light went into Titania and turned them into a new Light Warden. Now they are only king in name. Nothing remains of the person they used to be. They had no choice but to seal them away in the castle. The magic for breaking the seal was divided into 4 and split into different relics. They were meant to be kept apart until the time was right. This dress was one of the relics, and they have decided to give it to us. To get the rest of the relics, we will have to visit the other Fae folk. The crown is with the Fwath, the stone scepter is with the Numo, and the crystal shoes are with the Amaro. Urianger J recommends that we go to the Fwath first, as their domain isn't too far from here. We move to the Untouchable Gate and begin speaking to the spirits of water. They are interested in the idea of an entreaty from mortals. Our quest to gain entry to Lyhe Ghiah and vanquish the Light Warden sealed within has brought us to the domain of the water-bound Fwath, bearers of one of the 4 Fae relics. The creatures agree to yield to us their relic, but in exchange they demand of us what they call a thrilling sport. In order to fulfill our side of the bargain, our comrades sally forth into a realm of illusion as treacherous and unpredictable as its denizens. We fight many of its denizens and even a creature of Verbert legend known as Graul. Eventually, we come face to face with the ruler of the Fwath, Lake Lord Anekton, and put an end to the thrilling sport we have taken part in. The Fwath are very pleased with the spectacle, so much so that they all agree that we can take the crown after showing such a good show. But suddenly the mood shifts. They call us mighty, very pleasing to the eyes. They want to see more of us. Yes, they could watch us forever. Why don't we just turn him into one of us? Yes, that's a good idea. Then we could watch him forever. The Lake Lord smiles. What a fine idea. Why didn't he think of that? We may have the crown, but in exchange, they will have us. Water surges around us, and the waves swallow everyone nearby. We are woken up by the voice of Ardbert. If it weren't for the Kojin's enchantment, we would have surely drowned. He tells us that the first rule of dealing with the Fwath is that you don't deal with the Fwath. Our friends are safely on dry land. We gaze at the breathtaking sight of the ruins buried beneath the lake. This is the royal capital of the kingdom of Verbert. The people were a stubborn lot, very stuck in their ways, but once you got to know them, you couldn't find a more welcoming bunch. It always froze over in the winter, as they were high in the mountains, so everyone would pull up their chairs around the fire and trade tales over bowls of lamb stew, whilst the street lamps burned hot and bright outside. All dead and buried now, them and anyone who might remember them. Everything they did, everything they gave, what was it all for? He hopes that at the end of our journey, we'll have a better answer than his. The Verbertites sound a lot like the Ishgardians we have grown to know and love. We must keep on our path if we are to save them from the fate of the 8th Umbral Calamity. We swim to shore and find the rest of our friends looking for us. They were stricken with worry, but that's all gone now. They hand us the crown. Before we can begin moving to the place of the new Mo, a pixie rushes over, asking if a group of men are our friends. It seems that the Eulmorans are getting ever closer to Mheg. The twins will stay behind and help the pixies play with them as we continue our quest to get the final 2 remaining relics. To get to the village of the Numo, we need to pass through a mountain trail. The city of Verbert was flooded by the Fwath when they moved in. Where we are currently standing used to be the outskirts of said city. One cannot really blame the Fae folk for altering the land so. Instead, it lies with the light. It brought the entire world to its knees, wiping out civilization as we know it. The bigger regret would be how it was allowed to go unchecked for so long. Yet, despite all of this, Urian J is glad that he is here. He was the one who brought the Warriors of Darkness before Minfilia and had them go back to the First to save this world. He can no longer ignore the plight of this world. He labors for those we have lost, for those we can yet save. We continue forward to the village of the Nemo, Pla Eni. They are Fae folk who lived in this land even before the flood. They are the friendliest with men, and serve them whenever given the opportunity. When we visit, they are initially shocked. They haven't seen so many humans pass by in so many years. They will counsel about whether or not to give us the scepter. In the meantime, they want us to go around to each of the Nemo and give them our patronage. We first give our patronage to Marn Oz and learn a little bit about the Nemo. They believe in the honor of a task. They must receive precisely what the task is worth. If you give too little, then you belittle their abilities. But if you give too much, then you question their integrity. By giving fitting payment, their services will be at our disposal. We then give our patronage to Yusk Yuf, and from them they get sentimental about the past. They used to carry their wares to the castle of Verbert. Back then, it wasn't called Lyhe Ghiah. It was named Gwenez Licht. It was their last bastion against the Sin Eaters. And finally, we give our patronage to Wide Lad. He cannot do any work as the lawless Nemo have taken his invisible ink, and he asks us to retrieve it for him. Minfilia joins us on this task, and so we head to Father Collard's chambers, to the south of Pla Eni. We split up to find the ink, and once we are done, we find Minfilia staring at the castle outside. She is happy to see that we are safe, and is happy to hear that she was useful. As we know, the Minfilias before her battled in the Eulmoran army, but because they didn't need the Minfilias anymore, she has had barely any battle experience. If not for Thancred, she would have rotted away in her cell. He has taught her how to fight too, because if they couldn't summon us, then it would fall to her to battle against the Light Wardens. She knows that deep down, he is only keeping her around as a contingency, because she will never be his Minfilia. She does not know exactly what happened in the Batha Reng, only that Thancred stayed silent the entire journey back. There is nothing she can do for him, aside only offering her presence. His Minfilia should be the one to live on. That is why she came and found us, because she knew that's what she wanted. But now she has found us. What is she meant to do? Was she meant to tell us something? Bring us to someone? Take us somewhere? The answer is at the edge of her mind, just out of reach. A booming roar echoes throughout the land. It is coming from the castle itself. It is so loud that we have to cover our ears. Then we have a vision of the being inside of the castle. We see Titania, surrounded by nothingness.
Why? Why did you imprison us? Such boredom, such tedium have we suffered. It is unfair. Unfair. Come and play with us.
We return to Wide Lad to give him back his ink, but he is scared for his life, begging for mercy from the king. It seems like every Fae folk saw the same vision we did. Normally when a being turns into a Light Warden, they lose everything about themselves, but it seems like the king has retained their instincts. This manifests as a desire to play and be free. It's so strong that it often leaks through the seal and invades our consciousness. They have ignored it for so long, but they cannot do it forever. Ul'dah Wide Enix has finished his council and seeks us out. They believe that we have the power to release their fallen monarch from their torment and entrusts us with the scepter. The final relic is with the Armoro in Wolleckdorf. We speak with the gigantic Armoro nearby. He wakes up, uttering the name Ardbert, but it was only a dream. We tell him that we want the relic, as we need to face the Light Warden. He tells us no, we mustn't think such thoughts. We may succeed in slaying the king, but in doing so we will only bring ourselves more sorrow. Forget this folly, and return home. It is harder to change the mind of those who mean well, than it is for those who mean ill. To understand Urian J's words, he wants us to explore the village. The Armoro here are all capable of speech, and they all have deep love for man. They love them so much that they don't want to send them off to wars and watch them die any longer. It is out of concern for our well-being that Seto seeks to deny us the relic. We speak to Seto again, as it is our task to face the Light Warden. He has noticed that we have spoken to the villagers. Then we know that he does not do what he does out of scorn. He cannot bear to see men fight and die. None of them can. To lose one who has placed a gentle hand on them even fills their hearts with untold sorrow. But this is something we must do. Tell me, why do we wish for this? This land no longer belongs to man, and in slaying the Light Warden, it doesn't mean the Fae folk will change. We will have already paid the price due for anything that is owed. Why would we risk it all to face their fallen king? To save this world. He is stunned for a moment. He mutters to himself about whether or not this was just a mere coincidence. He tells us that he will test our strength to see if we are strong enough to do it. If we can finish this challenge, then he will give us the relic. We meet him in a clearing over to the east, and he lets out a roar that attracts sin-eaters. They come in waves of 4, then 2, and then finally 1, but they are no match for our strength. With the challenge won, he can see that we are capable of slaying the Warden, but he will need some time to think before then. In the meantime, he wants us to look for a medallion he dropped long ago. It is his most precious item. If we can't find it, then he will accept that it is gone forever. We dive into Long Mirror Lake and end up actually finding his medallion. We present it to him, and his face lights up. We found it, his precious medallion. It is a gift from a dear, departed soul. He was a traveler, and together they journeyed to the ends of the world. He couldn't speak back then, but they found joy in each other's company. He found this medallion and fashioned it into a necklace for him. He didn't have the words to tell him back then, but it filled his heart with pride. His name was Ardbert, and he was his friend. Everyone blamed him for the flood. Some spoke up for them, but in the end, those who only uttered their names as a curse drowned out their voices. It was too much for Seto to bear, so he left Man behind and came to Wallachdorf. Ardbert was a trusting soul, constantly being drawn into the troubles of others. Yet, despite this, he never thought twice when he saw someone in need. He always tried to help. It was no different then. The world needed heroes. It needed him. And yet... he was a good man. He deserved to be happy. He wishes he could have at least told him that. I'm sure Ardbert knows how you feel. We are reminiscent of Ardbert, our kindness. Amoros have the ability to perceive souls, so that they could recognize their masters. Though this ability is lost to time, he can see our soul. It looks like how Arbert's soul did. Of course, we are who we are, and our souls do not define us, but he is starting to believe that this is more than a mere coincidence. Which is why he will place his faith in us and give us the relic. A pixie rushes over to warn us that the Eulmorans are approaching ever closer. The rest of our allies will leave for Leader Laran, as we go to face the Light Warden. They will do what they can to delay the Eulmorans as long as possible. We must slay the Warden before they set foot in Mheg. The white dress, the shell crown, the stone scepter, the crystal shoes. Having acquired the 4 Fae relics through considerable effort, we now stand ready to break the seal over Lyhe Ghiah and confront the Light Warden of Mheg, the fallen fairy king, Titania. Yet, even as we hunt the Sin Eater, we are in turn hunted by the forces of Eulmore, who have thrown all caution to the wind and marched resolutely on the fairy kingdom. All that remains is to enter the castle and confront Titania, a being stripped of any reason or mercy. Just as the Elder of the Mo stated, we have to fight against the full fury of nature itself, but not even they can stand against our might and fall to us. Just as what happened when we slew Filia, the light seeps into our being, we are able to contain it, and the sunless sea above us vanishes, revealing the true night sky once more. We have freed their fallen king, and now the relics can serve their true purpose. The 4 relics begin glowing and float into the air. They are not only keys to the castle, but they are blessings bestowed to the new king. However, if we were to ascend the throne, we would no longer be human. We would instead turn into a Fae folk. So to save us from that future, to allow us to continue our fight, in our stead, Feo Ul will accept them, thus turning her into the new king, Titania. Kindla, Idikla, Mheg, Okbra. Rejoice and revel, for the kingdom of rainbows is forever young. We cut to moments before we slew the Light Warden. With Ranjit leading the front, they have managed to find their way into Leader Laran. He catches one of the pixies and forces us to end our games. The Scions are prepared to face Ranjit to buy us the time we so desperately need, but it seems like it wasn't necessary. Before they come to blows, the sky above them disappears. No matter, the Eulmoran commander tells them to seize our comrades, but when he turns around, they have all been turned into leafmen. The pixies are giggling and are excited. The message Titania said prior rang in their minds. They keep repeating, Til Rimnis, Aktla Orwa In. The king has returned. Make ready the feast. Like a scene out of a horror film, the knights are being pulled into the water by the Fwath. We know the fate that lies at the bottom of those depths for those dragged by the Fwath, and they lack the blessing of the Kojin. The Nemo are raising the knights into the air and waving them back and forth. and the pixies are turning the remaining knights into leafmen. The Eulmorans know they are losing this battle, and in the distance they can see us riding an Amaro and Titania coming to join the fray, so they call for a retreat. Before Ranjit leaves, he warns us that all of those who side with the Warrior of Darkness will be punished. His master demands it. We land as we see the Eulmorans flee, and tell our comrades what transpired within Lyhe Ghiah, and explain why Feoul is now Titania. She spared us from the fate of becoming king, and for that we are thankful. There is something we have to remember about Fae folk. They are eternal beings, but they only exist for the present. They live for the here and now, and not the may or may not be. Therefore, they are not driven as men are. They cannot fight for such causes as men do. They normally wouldn't help us fight against the Sin Eaters, but be that as it may, if they were to do it to repay a debt, that is a different matter entirely. To take back as much as is taken, to create as much as is destroyed, to give as much as is received, such is the way of Mheg. For giving them back the beautiful night sky, they will lend us their strength. And thus, our objectives here are done. Night has returned to Mheg, and we are one step closer to delivering the first from its doom. It is time we head back to the Crystarium, and are hoping it isn't razed to the ground. But luckily, we come back to a normal Crystarium. They were more interested in finding us than destroying this place. An unknown voice calls out to us. We certainly took our time. He had contemplated on completing the task himself. Alize wants to question who this man is, but Urianger stops her. If one were to flick through a Garlean history book, they would see many pages with his face on it, though not as young looking. Well, that saves him the explanation. He is Solus Zos Galvus, founding father of the Garlean Empire, but he is really named Emet Selch, an Ascian, one that is of equal rank to Laha Ghiah. He looks to the sky, stating that it is infuriating. Do you have any idea how long we have delayed the rejoining by? After the flood, the first had been shifting ever closer towards the light. The end was in sight, but then we had to come along and bring the world back from the brink of doom. All mankind had to do was enjoy their idleness under Vorthri's rule, but thanks to our meddling, all of their plans are in tatters. What does he intend to do now? Admit defeat and walk away? It crossed his mind to side with Vorthri and kill all of us, but that plan does not differ from what Laha Ghiah did, so instead he wants to go for a different approach. Cooperation. He will not try to hinder our objectives, and if we want it, he'll even lend us his strength and knowledge. We can hardly believe what we're hearing. Since the worlds were shattered, the Ascians have labored to commit rejoinings, to revive their one true god. Are we to accept that he's suddenly changed his objective? His plan hasn't changed, but we do not understand their motive. A war waged without knowledge of the enemy is no war. This time, he's decided to try and see eye to eye, to understand what drives the hero of Source, to determine if our goals are truly incompatible. So come, shed your beliefs, see them beyond the villains we take them for. When all is said and done, we may find ourselves on a path of cooperation rather than opposition. Think about it. Urianger throws a card at him, which shatters his form, turning him into a cloud of smoke. He has delivered his proposal, and we shall not dismiss it outright, but to deliver it via an illusion is not helping his cause. He apologizes, but he only took a precaution considering he was meeting the famed Ascian slayers. The message has been delivered, and now he will take his leave. We shall meet again soon. He has certainly given us much to ponder, but we need to report to the Exarch. They instead tell us to rest. We have earned it. They can handle this trivial task. So as we usually do at the end of our trials and tribulations, we return to our room in Dependence. The Exarch has left us a gift in our room. It is a set of sandwiches for us to eat after our tiring adventure. There is also a note next to the meal, which states, "Hopefully, the past few days have not been overly taxing. Pray take your rest and recover." Ardbert appears, talking about the Exarch. Even though he seems to be a good enough fellow, he is curious about the person he is. So much of his history is shrouded in darkness. There was no such person back in his day either. He has been gone for 100 years. He knows nothing of this city, not any more than we do. Still, that's not anything to worry about. It is Emet's Selch we should be worrying about instead. When their world was being consumed by the light, Elidibus appeared before them, telling them that the only way for them to live is to bring about a rejoining. They were desperate to save their world, so they listened to them, not realizing that the flood was made by the Ashians. They are beings that cannot be trusted, none of them. But Emet Selch had one thing right. Nobody should fight blindly. That's what he did, and it cost him everything he held dear. Not everything. Tell me about Seto. He got big. When they traveled together, he was the size of an ordinary chocobo. He also couldn't speak. He had no idea how much that medallion meant to him. Well, that's enough about his stories. We must have our own friends like Seto. He wants to hear our tales instead. We while the night away, exchanging stories of our past, remembering the good times, and remembering the reasons why we will stop at nothing to halt the 8th Umbral Calamity. For those we have lost, for those we can yet save,